Thank you everybody for coming out. They saved the best presentation for last, so thank you for being part of it. My name is Jeff Hawkes, and I am a business consultant for VSP Optics Group. Specifically, I work directly with VSP1 and our optical lab network. Appreciate you coming out to talk about a topic that really a lot of offices, let's get the right buttons here, that a lot of offices prefer not to talk about. We know that they're part of your general day-to-day business, but at the same time, it's one of those topics that we know is happening, but we're not necessarily always tracking it. At least that's the experience that I've had in the practices that I've worked with. We're going to cover a little bit of this today here, but there's also some tools that I want to make sure that you're aware of so that you can bring those back into your practice and share those with other members of your staff, both doctors and opticians in your offices. So one website that I want to make sure that you do note is this website here, uuniversity.vsp.com. This is a training portal that I think will look like no other that you've seen. In addition to some sections that we put together on reducing lab redo, or reducing redos, doctor redos, we've also got a number of other materials in there that start from basic optics. And we're coming, I think it's next month, we will be moving into CE approved courses as well. So definitely a site that you're going to want to keep an eye on. So let's talk about the key benefits of reducing those redos. Reality is we want to reduce cost and boost revenue, but that's not only going to be material cost or potential lab fees associated with redos, it's also the time that both the doctor and the staff spends with patients during a redo process. And that leads to increased available chair time for new patients. And we'll talk about some of the actual quantifiers as far as what that looks like. And improve patient satisfaction. If a patient's going to be coming back into your practice, we want to make sure that it's to order a second pair, right? We don't want them to come back in with issues. We want to make sure that it's for the right reasons. Where am I pointing this? Training and education for your staff. We talked a little bit about this. And attracting and retaining new patients. Those go hand in hand. The more educated your practice is, that your staff is on these topics, the more educated your patients are going to be as well. And patients that understand the lenses that they're receiving, that information is going to go a long way as far as what their expectations are when they're putting on the new set of lenses. 5.3%. This is based on we've got information from 154 labs across the country where we're able to detect that 5.3% is the average redo percentage for doctor redos across the country. It's something that's important for you to know what your redo rate is. If that number's upwards of 10%, well then we're looking at 1 in 10 of your patients is potentially unhappy with the lenses that they received. So we've got to just keep those numbers in mind. This is a number that you should be able to obtain from your laboratory. VSP1 can provide a detailed report that will show you specific to your practice what that redo percentage is and what those redos are for. There was a study by Jobson in 2016 where it was determined that the average new patient revenue equated to about $300 per practice. The average of redo cost is $5,000 a year, with about 9 patient redos every month. So every practice is going to be a little bit different, but again, it's important for you to understand where your practice fits into this from a financial standpoint. And then beyond a financial standpoint, I'm sure those of you in your practice that are dealing with the redo situations, one of the biggest things is just the conversation that has to be had with that patient, potentially apologizing to the patient for the delays and the issues that are going on. So number one reason to reduce redos is just increasing overall satisfaction, not only for the patient, but for your staff as well. So what are the most common redos? Definitely number one is going to be prescription change, followed by lens style, frame change, maybe a change to the fitting height or the seg height. PD measurement, material change are always going to be possible reasons that we see, as well as AR coating and tinting. So how do we manage those redos? And again, I understand that a lot of these things that we're going to talk about are common practices, best practices, if you will. But reality is not everybody's incorporating those into your day-to-day things. And again, this may not be pertaining to you because you are, but maybe not everybody in your staff is managing as you are. There we go. It's behind the wall. Did you see that? All right. So first thing you're going to do is verify that the eyewear matches up with the doctor's original prescription. You're going to check that in the lensometer. Just verify that the numbers are matching up. You want to check the distance, PD, and seg height, and you want to, just to make sure that everything has been set up properly, as far as especially that seg height and the PD measurements for the patient. Distance and near vision. Once you've taken the time to reestablish especially progressives, to reestablish that the lens markings are correct, use a verification mask and make sure that everything's aligned as it was expected to against the original prescription. As you're doing this, you want to uncover with the patient what are the issues that they're having. Is it primarily in the distance? So possibly is the fitting cross set up a little bit too high? Is the patient tilting their head back slightly so their gaze is actually through the intermediate part of that lens, which is going to not take advantage of the full width of the distance? So those are things that you're going to uncover during that process. Maybe it's a reading scenario, so you're watching them as they're reading and looking through the lens to establish, is this the right frame fit for them? So it's not a matter of trying to eliminate redos from the get-go, but these are also things that you're doing during the initial fitting process as well, or at least you should be. Finally, the back vertex, panoscopic tilt, the frame wrap. We want to make sure that we're kind of evaluating that during the initial dispensing process. We definitely don't want that lens too close to the eye to where there's problems with blinking, but at the same time we want to make sure it's close enough to the eye so that the patient's maximizing the widest parts of the lens. We know that every patient isn't necessarily going to be able to be fit to a 20/20 prescription. So check your charts. Is this prescription set up to maximize at a patient for 20/40? That's something that we need to know, because as there may be reasons, whether it's cataracts, diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, there may be reasons that patient won't be able to see as clearly as they think they'll be able to see. So setting those expectations up ahead of time is important. And I would stress to the doctors as well, that's a sensitive conversation. So that's something that should have happened during the exam portion of the fitting. And it's also something that you need to make sure is not just charted, but it's a conversation that you want to have with the optician so that everybody involved is understanding and that expectation is set up. Educate the patient. This is something I'm sure you're already doing, but just emphasizing with a first-time progressive wearer what they can expect, right? Not trying to scare them into, moving from a single vision to progressive, but at the same time, just setting those realistic expectations. Maybe they've chosen a different frame. How is that going to impact the way that they're going to see? And obviously lifestyle needs. So you're assessing initially, but also if they're coming back in, just reassessing how are they using these lenses. Is it for outdoor use? Is there potential issues of glare associated with it? Or are they in a cubicle where they're going to be in front of a computer all day long? So those are things you definitely want to have those conversations with them ahead of time. Potential RXs coming from out of your office. Definitely get those patients in the Phoropter and just double check the prescription. Any outside prescription, you want to make sure that you verified it, so that you are the ones that can verify that order coming back through. And the patient's going to appreciate that, right? The patient's going to appreciate the extra time that you do spend with them, and it's not something that everybody does, so that will definitely set you apart as well. If a patient has been in your office multiple times and you just cannot figure out what the issues are, reality is you may need to refer them to a specialist. And I'd use the word specialist. There are others in this industry and we all should be working together, but sometimes it just takes somebody else to look at it, reassess the problem. Maybe there's a medical issue that isn't diagnosed. And there's realizations that it's a patient with diabetes and there might be some other factors. But the patient's going to appreciate, again, you taking the time to help resolve the problem and move it forward. And in that same vein, follow up with your patients. So once there's a redo situation, they're dispensing new glasses, follow up with those patients. Don't be afraid that by calling them you may uncover something new. I think what you'll realize is most of the time, whatever you assessed and did worked. So follow up with them, and that's a sort of business partnership that's going to retain your patients and the loyalty that go quite a long way within your office. And finally, make sure that you and your practice have an established redo policy. How are you going to handle remakes when they come in? Do you have an unlimited remake policy? Is it something where you set up that, hey, you can have one remake every 30, in the first 30 days? Put it in writing. Protect yourself from that one patient that's going to take advantage of the situation, and have that set up in place. And you can always have some, potential flexibility with that, but at least have that in place. So, I talked about resources and U University. The other resource that I want to point to is a website called www.reduceredos.com. Creative name, right? We have spent the past year putting this site together and putting together resources for your practice to take advantage of. I have a few of the things here that we've done, including a checklist for you to kind of walk through with your staff. We have a redo log. The reason that's important is it allows you to start tracking specifically. Every time you have a doctor redo, just notate what it is. You'll start seeing trends within your office, believe me. Whether it's RX is being off or seg height issues, you'll start seeing trends, and that alone will allow you to potentially step in, put together a training within your own practice. Also on the site is a webinar. So there's going to be a webinar that you can go and log into as free. That's completely free. Access to U University is there as well. And also schedule an appointment with somebody like myself, with a VSP consultant that can come into your practice and work with your staff and, again, uncover potential opportunities and put together some training for your staff. So that's it for me. Don't forget to pick up your free survival kit. Patty over here has those set up for you. So thank you very much.